Hello everyone, welcome to the daily news protocol of the Hindu newspaper analysis contributed by Vishnu IAS Academy. Today we are going to see the news articles for the date 28 April 2022. In our previous session we have an MCQ, right? I hope all of you tried that MCQ. Now let's see the answer and analysis of that MCQ. We have studied regarding the Kuril Islands in our previous class. So regarding that, the question says that first statement, a group of 4 islands together called as Kuril Islands in the Sea of Japan. Here if you can notice, if you can see the map of the Kuril Islands, those are present in the here. That is not in the Sea of Japan but in between the Sea of Okhotsk and the Pacific Ocean. So hence the first statement is wrong, which states that Kuril Islands are in the Sea of Japan. So it is wrong. And the second statement reads as the Sakhalin Island is in between Sea of Japan and the Sea of Okhotsk. If you can see the map, these are the Sakhalin Islands, right? It is in between the Sea of Japan and Sea of Okhotsk. Clear? Here you can see that clearly. This is the Sakhalin Island. It is in between Sea of Japan and Sea of Okhotsk. So hence the second statement is right. It is in between the Sea of Japan and Sea of Okhotsk. The second statement is correct. And coming to the third statement, Kuril Islands are in the north of Japan. We have studied that also in our previous class. Kuril Islands, if it is the Japan, Hokkaido place is here at the northmost part of the Japan. So north to that place, Kuril Islands are there. So hence our third statement is also correct. So based on that, our answer of this question is the B. Statements 2 and 3 are the correct. We have asked the correct statements. Clear? So with this analysis of the MCQ, let us get into the discussion of the news articles for today. Our first topic to be discussed is regarding the SSLV. What are the SSLV? Those are produced by our Space Research Organization, ISRO. These are nothing but the small satellite launch vehicles. Recently, ISRO has put as a target to develop 3 such SSLVs under the purview of the ISRO. So, those are nothing but the SSLV D1, D2 and D3. The development of these 3 launch vehicles flights will be the target for the year 2022. And also if we can see the specifications, it will have nano, micro, small types of satellites. It will carry those types of satellites. Okay, as it is a small launching vehicle, small satellite launching vehicles, it will carry such a small satellites from the place Sriharikota, Satish Dhawan Space Center. And if you can see some specifications, it will lift the payloads of the weight 600 kg to 300 kg. It will place those small vehicles weighing 600 kg in the low Earth orbit and 300 kg satellite in the Sun synchronous orbit. Okay, what are these? If we can study these, the low Earth orbit is nothing but that orbit which is situated above the Earth's surface till the 2000 kilometers. Why? Because the distance of low Earth orbit from the surface of the Earth would be the 2/3 of the Earth radius. So that's why these small satellites will be put under this low Earth orbit, carrying the satellites of 600 kilograms. And coming to the Sun synchronous orbits, we hear now and then that so many orbits regarding geostationary orbits, geosynchronous orbits and sun synchronous orbits. What are all these? Let us learn the meaning of these orbits. Those are nothing but this. If we consider the Earth axis, it is the Earth axis. The geostationary orbit is nothing but the movement of the satellite around the equator of the Earth. Okay, it will move along with the rotation of the Earth. So hence we can see that satellite from our surface at the same place. Like if we can consider, if it is the Earth, if it is the satellite, it will move while the earth is moving, the satellite will move. Here the satellite is facing this side only of the earth. So that's how the orbit of the satellites will be a match with the rotation of the earth. So those are called as the geostationary orbits. And if we can see the specifically the geostationary orbit coincides with the equator. Okay, and if we can see the geosynchronous, it is also resembles the space of the earth on the earth's surface. So if we can see the rotation, the orbit path of that satellite, it will be some inclination will be there. It will not be parallel with the earth's equator, but it will form like a, if it is the earth, the satellite will move like this, like this. So it will create, if it is the earth surface, it will create like 8-shape circulation, 8-shaped path on the earth surface. If we can observe its surface, its path will be resulted in that shape. So that is the specification of the geosynchronous. Coming to the sun synchronous, if you can see here, the earth is here, it is the path of the orbit, and here also it is the path of the orbit. So here what's happening is that, if you can imagine, sun is here and the earth is here. So based on this, if it is the orbit panel of the satellite's orbit, it will move like this. That means the panel, the face of that, the path of that orbit will always face the sun. So that means the exposure to the sun will always be there for those orbits of those satellites which are put under the sun synchronous orbits. So hence, if you can consider here, the satellite will rotate around the earth facing the sun always. That's why it will be in synchronous to the sun. And also, if you can see the movement of this object here, see here it is the satellite, and it is facing the same place of the earth. It is rotating along with the rotation of the earth. So that is called as the geostationary. Okay, geostationary and geosynchronous come under the same group, that will be synchronous with the earth, but their path will differ. That's geostationary will be the synchronous with exact equator, but the geosynchronous will have some inclined position. So these are all the meanings of the orbits we see till now. Now let's move to the SSLV. What is the SSLV? The SSLV will launch vehicles in such a orbit called as sun synchronous and the low earth orbits. If you can see the specifications, it is a 3-stage rocket. The SSLV is a 3-stage rocket, and its height will be 34 meters. The lift off weight of this will be the 120 tons. If we can consider that specification with already we are having the PSLV. With that PSLV is a 4-stage launch vehicles. Its height is of 44. So comparing this with this, the SSLV is smaller than the PSLV. We know that PSLV is a working horse of the earth of India. So in India use PSLV very frequently to launch many launching vehicles and satellites. So here comes the SSLV, which will launch those nano, micro, mini satellites. So here the lift off capacity of the PSLV is 320 tons. It's a XL variant. We have PSLV XL variant. It will have that capacity, and also it will have the solid propulsion stages, that is of SSLV. Okay, all the 3 stages of SSLV will be of solid propulsion stages. And also under this project, the private industry participation is also being encouraged to develop such big projects and launch vehicles. Okay, after learning all this, I hope you didn't get any confusion here. Just we are comparing the features of PSLV with that of SLV. Learn clearly? So after learning all this, let us move on to the next topic. That is nothing but regarding the focus to be showed on the state children by the state governments and the central government. Recently in the news, the Supreme Court directed the states and the union territories to frame such a rehabilitation policies to save those street children. It will be under the CISS, Children in Street Situation. So it has directed those bodies to formulate any standard operating procedures. Under the CISS, we have this SOP 2.0. Okay, this 2.0 is framed by the NCPCR. This is nothing but the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. And hence, if we can consider any incorporation, any formulation of such guidelines, two states have done that. Those are nothing but the Tamil Nadu and the Delhi. These two places, these two state governments and the UT have developed such guidelines to protect those state children. And if we can see the state children in situation, those children are very extremely vulnerable. Why? Because they lack such a identification, and also they lack such a proper care and parenting, and they lack education. So considering all these, there should be some incentive and support from the government authorities to support those children and also to support their education and care and all. So in that backdrop, if we can see the NCPCR, it is a statutory body. What is a statutory body? A statutory body is nothing but a body that is formed with back of any statute of the state, any law. So hence the statutory body, the NCPCR, is established in the year 2007 under the Child Protection Act. Okay, it works towards achieving child rights, and also it functions under the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Okay, as we have seen earlier, the NCPCR had developed a program called as the SOP 2.0 that focuses to provide special protection to children with or without family. It is important. We think that it will protect and it will provide some safeguards to those children which are orphans, which are not having family. But here it considers those children who are having family also. Why? Because if they are in a certain poor conditions and certain vulnerable conditions, those children are also has to be protected by such initiatives. Hence, it focuses on those children having family or not. Okay. So, based on this, now let's move on to the next topic. Draft of new IT law likely to be out in May. A new IT law. Is there any occurrence? Is there any need to frame such a new IT law? If we can consider that scenario, we have our IT law that was framed in the year 2000. Okay, from then onwards, it's been 22 years. 2 decades were passed. So, considering the emerging technologies and emerging market scenarios, such an old IT law cannot be compatible to our present days. So hence, considering those issues, a new IT law is to be developed, which was suggested by the government and authorities. Okay, so it will work to protect Indian internet. Why? Because as we have seen that the business dignitary Mr. Elon Musk has bought the Twitter with $44 billion. So considering that our social media is and internet, the platforms of internet are going beyond the control of the government authorities. So considering that, our Indian government is focusing on some few and new rules and regulations. Okay, so in that context, Indian government has to protect its internet platforms and social media platforms by formulating any new laws like any new IT laws. So that's why the standard set of expectations and rules should be satisfied to protect any such drawbacks created by any other private parties. So in that backdrop, if we can consider the weaponization of any internet platforms, the government should come in between to protect such platforms by creating some rules and regulations. Moving forward, let us see the next news article. There is a sharp decline, a fall in the malaria cases, that is nothing but 86.45%. As remembering the Malaria Day on April 25th, we are studying these scenarios and percentages of malaria cases. So, infection related deaths have fallen by nearly 79%, that is nearly 80% from the year 2015 to 2021. And also a progressive strengthening of the healthcare delivery system and improving multi-sectoral coordination and collaboration are the need of the hour. So hence, if we can consider the malaria case management was suggested by the ministry, by Union Health Ministry, to safeguard the malaria in further future. And also government's target is to eliminate malaria by the year 2030. It is also main objective and target of the Malarian department of the Indian government. In that scenario, if we have any such an initiative to reduce the new malaria cases in India, if we can see thus, we have two such bodies. The National Strategic Plan, we have a plan for malaria elimination that is targeted to be achieved till the year 2022, which was framed in the year 2017. And also we have another framework, National Framework Malaria Elimination, should be targeted till the year 2030, which was framed in the year 2016. So in that scenario, if we can see some few basic facts of the malaria, it is a disease caused by a protozoan. Okay, that is nothing but the Plasmodium varieties, in like Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum. Okay, with like that protozoans, malaria is caused. And also the vector of that disease is nothing but a mosquito, which is female Anopheles mosquito. So with that, the malaria pathogens will be spread in between the hosts. Here the mosquito acts as the vector. Okay, these are all the things to be learned under the malaria, as we have seen malaria in our news recently. Moving forward, let us see the next news article that is regarding the Mission Antyodaya. What is the Mission Antyodaya? It is nothing but to focus on the rural India, the entire and holistic development of rural India. The Mission Antyodaya was proposed and initiated. But are we in a proper line? Are we in a proper direction to achieve those targets of the Mission Antyodaya? So if we can study all those, the government of India has launched that scheme in the year 2017-18. And also Mission Antyodaya is a convergence and accountability framework. As per the SCSEC report, the Socio-Economic and Caste Census 2011, 90% rural households have no salaried jobs. That is a very worrying point, right? Why? Because the rural households are not having a betterment of life, and also they are not having salaried jobs. Hence, they are depending on the some other sustenance livelihood mechanisms like daily laborers and works and all, so that the security, the salary and job security should be provided, as majority of the people are not having any salaried jobs. And also millions of rural households are landless. That is also very big concern. And also no room or only one room to live. It is also should be considered to develop the livelihood of such people. They are not considered as a completely poor people, but because of lack of proper infrastructures and support of the authorities, they are having such a life. So by incorporating some initiatives and incentives under such schemes called Mission Antyodaya, we can achieve the complete transformation of rural India. So like that, those rural people are undergoing multiple deprivations. Mission Antyodaya should work by utilizing the functions of self-help groups and also encouraging them. And also it collects the data regarding needs for health and nutrition, social security, good governance and water management. All these areas will be covered under the mission Antyodaya. Okay, so if we can go deep into it, we have a report called as Mission Antyodaya report in the year 2019-20 and 20. It has told that there are gaps in the infrastructure. As we have seen earlier, many rural families are having only one room or no room. And also they are not having any salaried jobs, any security for their livelihood. So considering the reasons behind that, the report, the Mission Antyodaya report is saying that there are gaps in the infrastructure of rural India. So the gap report and the composite index show an unmistakable terms that building, economic development and the social justice. These two are the very most important criteria to be noticed. The social development as well as the economic development. Both should go parallelly. We shouldn't neglect one, but we should focus on both at the same time. If we can see any better way forward for this issue, to fill those gaps in the rural infrastructure, we should focus on the rural to urban disparities. If those disparities were to be reduced, those gaps of rural infrastructure can be fulfilled. And also a complete integration is needed. And also focus should be on primary healthcare, literacy, drinking water supply and sanitation. Like all these basic needs should be focused more and more, and provided all these in a plenty amounts, those infrastructural gaps can be fulfilled so that they can have a better livelihood. So in that scenario, if we can see any already launched Indian schemes, we have the Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme, and the NRLM, National Rural Livelihood Mission, and the National Social Assistance Program, and also the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. All these schemes, and there are many such schemes, most of the important schemes of those are these to be worked more to focus on the integration of these rural and urban areas. So after having the knowledge of these, let us move on to the next news article, that is nothing but Cbdt aims to lift tax GDP ratio to 15 to 20% from the current 12%. It is a fact to be remembered to use in your mains answers. The tax GDP ratio has to be increased. That was told by the Cbdt, Central Body of Direct Taxes. So India has recently noticed highest direct tax collection ever. It is important. In recent reports, the higher amounts of direct taxes collected were noticed by the Indian government. That is nearly 14 lakh crore rupees. That was higher ever till now. And also it shows the growth of almost 50% than the previous statistics and digits. Okay, so it indicates that the Indian economy has bounced back after 2 years of the pandemic, right? It is very true, right? Many world countries and many developed countries and developing countries, even the developed countries have seen such problems to come out of that pandemics. So hence beside all those economies, Indian economy has tried to recover from that pandemic crisis. Okay, and in that scenario, if we can see the basic concepts of this news article, those are nothing but the tax GDP ratio. What is tax GDP ratio? It is nothing but a ratio of the tax revenue of the country, and that is compared to the country's gross domestic product. The tax revenue of and GDP. The ratio of these two is nothing but the tax GDP ratio. What is the benefit of studying this? This ratio measures the government control on any economic resources. So hence, why? Because the GDP is the income, right? In that income, if we can consider the contribution of tax revenue, that will reflect the government's control. Why? Because it shows that the government is successful in collecting such a huge amounts of tax revenue from the people of India. So that's why it shows that government role. And also tax to GDP ratio is calculated by dividing the tax revenue with the GDP. Moving forward, let us see the direct taxes. What are the direct taxes? It is nothing but a tax paid directly by the consumer or a firm. And also few examples of those are nothing but the income tax, property tax, all these come under the direct tax platforms. So if we can consider, in India we are having huge revenues coming out of those direct taxes. So direct taxes are most beneficial for India, for countries like India. Okay, moving forward, let us see the question of the day. It is regarding the NCPCR. I am not going to answer this now. I will leave it to you people to answer this question. Try to answer this and let us see the answer of this question in our next session. With this, we end our session here. Let us meet in another interesting session tomorrow. Thank you.